Hi guys, and welcome back. I am going to talk about my shirt first. So I have a new obsession that I'm dying to share with you guys, and it is plants. Live, living, breathing, air purifying, cute as a button plants. So I've always had a black thumb. I've never had a green thumb. I've always struggled with raising, especially indoor plants. So I would get a plant, it would die within a few months, so I just never thought it was something that I could really master. However, recently I decided, after we built the house, that I wanted to decorate with more live plants because I think they're so cute. And that's what got me started. So I'll talk about my first one I got that helped me to build some confidence, and then we'll go from there. But I'm going to start it here in the bedroom because I'm going to be honest, you have to do your research. You can't just go and buy a plant and stick it anywhere because it may not thrive there. So I have been diligent in doing my research. If I have a spot that I think I want to plant, I talk to someone who knows. Like, we have this really cool girl in our town that has a little sanctuary thing where she has all kinds of plants, and she knows a lot about plants. So when I'm looking for something for a specific spot, I pick her brain about it. I tell her about it. I talk about the lighting. I talk about all the things. And she's helped me to really pick some plants that I'm hoping do well. So first, I'm going to start with some of my more recent finds. Once I started getting a lot of plants, I felt like they all require different things, different fertilize, different watering schedules. And I wanted to make sure that I was staying on top of all of that. So I took this notebook and I made it my plant book. And inside, I have a page dedicated to each plant that I have that just tells me a little bit about the fertilize needs, the watering needs. And so I'm referring to this often, although every week I'm trying to make it a point to check my plants. I think there's nothing that replaces that. And I'll tell you about a little story when I get to it about how I kind of failed one of my plants and it died. So I think you just have to check them. I think you have to feel the soil and see if it's really dry, and you have to, but you do need to know about fertilize. A lot of plants do not require fertilize in the wintertime. So I think it's handy to have things written down, and that way you keep your plants on a healthy schedule as far as the things they need. So we'll introduce you first to my Birds of Paradise. I call him a he, is a fairly new plant. I haven't had him but about a month, I would say. He is one that is a tropical style plant, and I talked to her about my lighting conditions in the bedroom. So he's awesome. He's going to have big leaves. He can grow really tall, and he's got a lot of space here to develop. The cool thing about him with watering is that he only requires watering every couple of weeks, but you have to check. So he's not one that's going to like to be wet in his planter. So you have to fill the soil. So you have to learn all these things if you're going to be a successful indoor plant grower, which is what I'm trying to be. Now, over on the table, we have a staghorn fern. How cool is this? This is called a fronds. And that is, in the wild, they would grow on the sides of trees. And that would be what would hold the fern to the tree. So it would actually be up this way. And the lady who I got the fern from, she actually has these on a wall mount in her house. So you can do all kinds of cool things with this style fern. This style fern requires not a lot of wet, because if you think about it, if it's up on the side of a tree, the water's draining through. It's never sitting in water. So I use the peat moss. I dampen it about every other week is what she suggested. And then you just mist this fronds thing every week. So you got to learn that stuff. You can't just come in here and dump some water on him or you'll drown him. He'll end up looking really pitiful and dying. So that's the two I just added to the bedroom, and I got both of these at the same time. So I'm super excited. And I just want to point out that I have the coolest little thing I found at an antique store. This is like a shell pink, like a whole, I think that's what you call it, pottery. And so when I saw that, I loved it. I thought it would go really well with my bedroom, which I've been redoing a little bit. So I took this to her to get a specific plant for that pot. Now we're going to move on, I guess, into the bathroom. Okay, so now we're in the bathroom. I've been doing an experiment in here with several different plants. You need plants that like high humidity, obviously, because there is a lot of humidity in a bathroom. And mine, I opened my shade. Right now we've got it to where the lighting's right for filming, but I usually do have my shade open to let in more natural light. The two plants that I have in here right now is this guy, And it's called a Wandering Jew. Let me see what other name. There's a more inch plant, another name for that. And it grows really quickly. And it said online, these are not going to be a long-term plant. They're going to last a year, year and a half, and they'll have kind of done what they're going to do and maybe die. So I'm not going to stress about that. I'm going to keep it. I think it's really cute. It's got purple. I loved it. And then I'm not going to stress if it doesn't have this huge long life. The other plant in here is just kind of an oddity. It's called a pothos. And so the story behind this one is this was one of the first plants I got. So when I first got started, pothos is supposed to be a plant you can't kill. Well, somehow I managed to repot the plant I got into a really big pot, which traumatized the plant. And it didn't kill it, but it really stunted it, and it looked really rough. So I made the decision that I wasn't going to continue to try to keep the plant alive and do all that. I was just going to start over. But this was part of that plant. It was just a little cutting or growth of it. And so, I don't know, I just stuck it in that pot. Well, at first I'm like, I'm not even going to keep that, but all of a sudden now it's growing like crazy. It does look a little weird because it's just a little hanging out the side, but it's growing so well. So it really likes it here in the bathroom. So I'm going to keep it and see what happens. And I love that it's starting to trail down. It's really exciting. Now, I'm going to show you my string of pearls, and I'll talk about it a little bit in here, and I'll show you what happened. So I wanted to have another plant in here, and I decided on the string of pearls, which is a succulent. It's supposed to be an easy to grow succulent. I'm not convinced of that yet. But, so I brought it into the bathroom and I looked it up and I had my watering schedule. Well, in the meantime, you're supposed to water it once a month. I let it die, basically. I didn't check it like you should check, and it got so dried out. So by the time Lindsay, my younger daughter, realized what was happening, it was really too far gone. So my dog just came in. And I'll show you what it looks like now. I really think it's just a lost cause, and I'm just going to have to start over. But you have to learn. I think the key thing for you to understand about indoor plants, and what I'm learning every day, is that it's a process of learning. It's not something that you just have to kind of experiment with plants and see what likes it in the bathroom and what doesn't. So unfortunately, I didn't realize soon enough that that plant was not getting enough sun and was perhaps getting too much humidity in here. And I did move it, but it was too late. So right now I only have these two plants in the bathroom. I do have an open space, which is really exciting. Maybe even two. Okay, so now we're moving into the laundry room, and I have two plants in here. This one on the shelf is called a snake plant. It is going to be a plant that will grow depending on its container. So you can see them that are really, really tall. If I transplanted that, it would probably have a huge growth spurt. But you can see I have some little babies growing right here. So this one's doing fine in the container it's in. One key thing about this plant is it does not require a lot of water. About once a month is all that is recommended. And then I try to be really careful and not just saturate it, because it's really prone to what's called root rot. So if you let water sit with this plant, the roots will rot out and it'll kill it. Even though it's a particularly easy variety to grow, you have to be really careful about your watering. So I have it on a calendar, and I'm very strict about making sure that I don't overwater. Another thing about this plant is it does not require a lot of fertilize. So that's why it's really important. My book is going to come in handy. It only requires about once a season, and then nothing through the winter. So like every 3 months is all you would want to fertilize that. So it really likes more drought, I guess nutrient deficient circumstances, and it thrives in that. The one behind us is called an airplane plant or a spider plant. It can be either one. And here's the cool story there. So when I went into the botanical store in my town, the girl is so nice, and we'd go in and shop with her a lot, and she was getting rid of some things for 50% off, and she ended up giving me this plant, and we were able to just pick something off the table. So I really think these are cool, and I had been wanting to try one. So this was not the plant I had in mind for this area. I did want to have a plant here, but since I could get it and it worked out, that's what's going to stay there. So I love it. It's one that requires weekly water. It does dry out pretty good in a week, so I take it down every week and water it. It seems to be doing okay right here. It has some light, kind of indirect light, which I'm finding most indoor plants thrive from. They like to have light, but mostly indirect. So we'll see. It seems to be doing fine. I hope it's going to like these lighting conditions. As we move into winter, things will change a little bit with the lighting, so we'll see how it goes. Now we're going to move into the kitchen, and I have one plant in the living room, so we'll kind of show you those. I almost forgot. This is called an air plant. Let me show you what he looks like. He's so cool. It is no roots, no soil. And the cool thing is I just take him out. I water him really well once a week. A key thing that we learned from the lady at the botanical store is whenever you water him, you need to let him dry upside down like this for a little bit, because water settles in the inside, it will make it rot. So in this cool little container, I was able to get that from her, and so it's a great way to display him. And he seems to be super happy sitting on my desk. I don't really have enough light over here. I tried some bamboo and it just didn't last very long because there's not any light much over here at my desk, but this is thriving really well there, so that's cool. So that's an air plant, and I'm planning to get more of these. She's got some cool Spanish moss that I'm looking at. Okay, this is called a ZZ plant. I want you to notice the yellow, so let me tell you what happened. So when I made my book, I've had this one a good little while, maybe close to a year now, and I was watering him every week. Well, once I did my research, he doesn't require anywhere near that amount of water, so I have switched to an every other week, and I'm hoping that these leaves will clear up, but that's usually a sign of overwatering. If the leaves become yellow, there's too much water. So I watered him this morning, but I am spacing that out now to every other week. Also, with him, he only requires fertilizer like every 3 months, so this plant really thrives on more of a nutrient deficiency too. But you can look at the light green, that's all new growth. It's really cool. I looked it up. I think it's called a Hiawatha, something like that, but it's a cactus family, and it only requires a 1/4 cup of water per month. So the instruction card was very specific about how much to water this. So I've been doing that. It sits here in the window. It gets quite a bit of morning sun, and it seems to be doing quite well. I've killed other cacti, so I'm tickled. Now up here, you're gonna see what's called a crab or Christmas cactus. I've had that now, gosh, this is going on 2 years, I guess. Yeah. So it did finally bloom last year after the first of the year, so I'm hoping to get it to bloom again this year. They're a little finicky about getting them to bloom. It's a huge process that you have to go through. But this particular cacti requires weekly watering. They live in tropical settings, and so they're used to having more humid, and I spritz it and do all kinds of things to kind of mimic that humidity. But it's doing really well. I feel like I'm going to need to repot it, but most plants you don't repot until spring. So this year, when in the springtime, I may look at getting a bigger pot for it. Now this is the plant that started it all, and you can't appreciate it without me bringing it down and seeing this beauty. This is an African violet, of course, and it started as a little tiny, like 4 leaves, and maybe had some blooms on it when I brought it home. It's now blooming continuously, and I just can't say, this is the one that got me started. So I had some success, and that gave me some confidence. I have repotted that. I did repot that in the spring, and it did well. I was terrified to repot it because I was so afraid that I would kill it, but it did fine. And I want more African violets, so I'm kind of on the search for that right now. It is a weekly waterer, and I do fertilize it once a month. It requires a little bit of attention. The leaves around the edges will start, as it's gotten so big, they kind of get droopy, and I pinch those off because you don't want the plant sending energy to something that's dying anyway. And I also try to keep the dead flowers clipped off, but it's been blooming pretty much continuously for probably 4 months now, which is really exciting. So my disastrous string of pearls is my last thing I want to talk about. So when I got him, there was all kinds of green pearls around through here, and then a few strands hanging down, which is thus the name string of pearls. Of course, now you can see that it's looking really dead. I didn't get to him in time, but that's just a lesson that I learned. This particular plant does not like my bathroom. Maybe in another bathroom it would do great, and it's going to need a little more light than it gets in there. I hate to lose the guy. They're not cheap. Plants are not cheap, but I learned a lesson from this one. So I think you should take every opportunity with plants as a learning experience in order to, next time do better. So now I have, gosh, I don't even know how many. I have several plants and they're all seem to be doing pretty well. But I've learned that each one of them has a unique requirement. And that's something that perhaps I was doing wrong in the past and why I didn't have good luck. So I wanted to introduce you to that. And with that being said, I want to show you my shirt. I found this at Altered State just recently. In fact, I can link it below because it's probably still available. And as you can see, it has tons of plants on there, and at the bottom it says just one more. And I feel like that's going to be my new philosophy. I'm always going to be looking for a little space that I can put one more plant. It's time consuming, so if you're interested in plants, don't think that it's not something that's not going to require time from you. It's not as easy as just take something and dump a little water. It does require a little more effort than that if you're going to be successful. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed sharing with you one of my new hobbies, which is the indoor plants, and I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and catch me next time.